Hi, my name is Mike Lawrence. This video is one of a set which is intended to provide a different interpretation of the experimental results that constitute the foundation of current physics. It is clear that the present explanation for what we see in the universe is good in many ways, but it is missing an overall coherence. My view is that we need to look at physics with new eyes and consider an interpretation that explains most things well, even if it does question just about everything. I do not disagree with any experimental results, only the interpretation of those results. And I do not say that the hypothesis that I'll be talking about in these videos is the theory of everything, and that everything I suggest is correct, but it is a start. Each video in the set will cover an aspect of physics. The whole set needs to be understood together in combination, because many aspects rely on each other, and any one taken on its own may not be convincing to those relying on the current interpretations, some of whom may actually be offended by the hypothesis. There will be links in the videos to other videos in the set that cover closely related or overlapping aspects. Within the boxes in the videos are representations of the motions of the particles and their composites, which I will be explaining more fully. I'm happy to answer questions where I can, perhaps providing links to where a deeper mathematical analysis shows why I say what I do, since equations and graphs do not make good videos, and will post replies where appropriate on Twitter. I hope you enjoy the videos and they enable you to better appreciate the absolute symmetry and simplicity of nature. But please remember, I'm not an experienced presenter, and although I state everything as if it were correct, this is only a hypothesis. This is video number 19, Entanglement, Tunnels and Superpositions. The quantum environment is identified as where uncertainty rules and time is useful only as an averaging concept. But this hides that the underlying particles, the meons, always have specific properties and positions. It is just that they cannot be identified quickly enough in the loop composite forms. The starting point for an explanation of quantum effects is the photon, composed of a loop and antiloop rotating in the same sense. These loops, having formed a photon, are entangled together because their meons have become partially merged across the two loops. As those two loops are separated, a tunnel of merged pairs forms between them, excluding all merged pairs from within the tunnel. The two loops randomly swap positions at the ends of the tunnel, travelling at above light speed within the tunnel because their meons suffer no viscosity from any background merged pairs. At all times, the properties of the loops remain unchanged, but are only observable at the tunnel ends because there are no merged pairs to transmit the mass and charge forces of the meons in the loops except within the loops themselves. The unmerged meons within the loop maintain the chains between themselves because the chains always have a source and sink at those unmerged meons. At each tunnel end, whilst one loop is there, its properties can be observed, and the sum over time of those properties for the two loops is what is meant by a superposition. There is potentially a second type of tunnel, although it is in a spherical sheet form. The hypothesis can usually describe the motion of a photon in a generally straight line, gravitationally influenced and losing energy to the viscosity of the background as it travels. There is another possible description which suggests that the photon is emitted in a double-shell spherical tunnel, and it skips around physically located between the shells as the shells expand at light speed. The photon can do this because both the tunnel shells, composed of merged pairs, and the photon itself have no energy, and the photon's motion within the shells is not limited to light speed because the tunnel excludes the background merged pairs. As the spherical shell expands, the photon appears in different places just inside the outer shell and is only observed if an observer makes a coincident observation at the instant that the photon is at the observer's position. Immediately prior to such an observation, for a photon emitted from Alpha Centauri, the photon could have been equidistant from Alpha Centauri on the far side away from the observer. What is then observed is the sum of the gravitational and other effects on the now distorted shell at the point of observation. Depending on whether the photon or the shells are disturbed, the observational result will be particle-like or wave-like, respectively. Since many photons are emitted simultaneously, there will be many shells and many positions within those shells for photons to exist temporarily, so that the shells may appear to be continuously and completely inhabited by photons. Related videos would be 32, Quantum Mechanics and Wave Particle Duality, and 29, What are Photons? Thank you for watching.